Hey guys, Megan here, the faithful fibromyalgia warrior in the office slash spare room slash dog's room. And you'll see there's our lovely new little greyhound boy. There's Billy. He's just chilling out. Sorry, the bed's not quite made, but that's all right. So I wanted to talk to you guys today about what? What did I want to talk to you guys about? Well, first of all, I've been binge watching some videos by Pim Jansson. I believe that's how you pronounce her last name. She's Swedish. She's super cool, in my opinion. Her last name is spelled Jansson, I believe. She is actually the partner of Professor Bart K. And he is like one of my all-time favorite YouTubers. Why? Because he is an expert in the science behind nutrition, how the body works, physiology, and not only does he explain it well for those of us who have no idea what we're talking about, or no idea what's going on, but in fact, the cool part is, sorry, there we go. There's part of the desk in the background. The cool part is that, so he's got the channel where he just addresses the science and just the facts, which I appreciate. I'm curious, but I do not have the kind of brain power to have studied this on my own. I wouldn't be able to do it. But to hear him explain it, very cool. So you should absolutely subscribe to his channel if you haven't yet. Also, Pim, who's amazing, and I know she got her background, her training is in nutrition, but of course she came to realize that everything that was taught in nutrition was wrong, thankfully, and so she is out trying to help us see, trying to help people realize that traditional nutrition and the teaching of it and the beliefs around it are not correct, and in fact, what we always thought was true wasn't. And therefore, fats are important, carbs are not required, sugar is the worst culprit of all time. But then again, the high oxalates of different foods is also detrimental. And she's really fun to listen to because they live in a very different time zone. The time zone for Australia and New Zealand, okay? Because that's, they're out that way. So they're quite a bit ahead of me time-wise. So I never quite catch them live, but I do follow up with their videos after the fact. And I appreciate the fact that both of them are very curious, and their whole goal is to help people undo the damage from years, decades of eating the wrong things because we were lied to and told the wrong things. So you absolutely should check out Pim Jansson's channel. She is all about helping people with carb addictions. And the thing is, if those of us, and I include myself, who have that addictive personality, that addictive part of our brains, whether it is carbohydrates, whether it is sugar and processed crap, or all of the above, it is an addiction. And, it is as difficult to stop as it is for somebody who has an addiction to alcohol or medication or illegal drugs and substances. And in some ways, it's even more difficult because it's not like you're going to go to the family dinner and Aunt Susie is going to offer you a hit of cocaine, right? Or ask if you want to shoot up some heroin. That it's not like that. But you will have the aunts, the uncles, the grandparents who are like, oh, I made this pie just for you, or have some more stuffing, or have some more of this, mashed potatoes with cheese. Just come on, it's all good. It just help yourself. It's good for you. And I tell you what, I watched a video she did where she was talking and interviewing Sally K. Norton about oxalates and how they affect the body. and the damage that they do to our tissues. And wow, it's amazing. It's incredible. I was terrified. Now, luckily, I cut out all carbs pretty much, as far as plants, at least 2.5 years ago. Um, and it's a good thing because, when I realized the damage, the oxalates that can get into the body from things like carrots and mushrooms and potatoes and sweet potatoes and most fruits, not all, but most, and of course all the grains and all the pulses and all the nuts. I'm glad I stopped eating those things, but it's only been 2.5 years. And what I also came to understand was that a lot of the time, even though I've been eating carnivore and mostly no carb, like zero carb, but for the most part zero carb, I was still feeling headaches and exhaustion and a bit of bloating, and I could not figure out why. And even this, skin issues. But there you have it. Sorry about that, guys. That was my lovely husband calling me through Messenger. He is in Ontario. He's in Canada for the week. He went there to go spend New Year's with our younger son and also to see a couple friends and some family. So I definitely wanted to take that call. So yeah, what I was trying to say is the breakouts that I'm having, I would still see occasional breakouts in my skin, every month, little ones, but this is different. And I noticed the other day when I ate a bit of pineapple, which I mentioned in my previous video, foolishly of me, because I know anything citric, especially anything fruity, so like pineapple, if I was to have any lime or lemon or orange, not only does it aggravate my IBS, but it would cause me to break out in a little bit of a rash, or almost like it looked like rosacea. It would flare up my rosacea and my IBS. But this is different. And it just came out of nowhere. And what I understood from the video that Sally K. Norton did with Pim was that it is most likely the body dumping oxalates. And while it is good that the body's getting rid of this stuff because this damages the tissues and everything, it can take years for it to fully clear itself out. And so I didn't bother trying to cover this with any makeup or anything else, because I wanted you guys to see that, first of all, this is part of the body's process of finally getting itself healed. And there's no embarrassment or shame about it. And so, especially I think for women, regardless of whether we are 50, like myself, and older or younger, we always feel like we need to cover it up. We have to appear with perfect skin. But the reality is, until we get the crap out of our bodies fully, our skin will not be perfect. There are people who have said, oh, I went carnivore and within 2 weeks my skin was perfect. To that I would say, you probably didn't have that many issues to start with, or you might be one of the very, very lucky few that is not yet dumping oxalates, or maybe you didn't have a lot in your system in the first place, although that's pretty hard to believe because oxalates are in everything from chocolate, dark cocoa that is used in chocolate, to all those leafy greens that we're told to eat, like spinach and Swiss chard and kale and all the stuff that tastes gross but apparently is good for us. Things like a lot of the berries that we're told to eat. So the smoothies, basically, that many of us would have had for years. The vegetables, that are good for your eyes, which I always had an issue. I ate them because I liked them, but I've worn glasses almost my whole life. So clearly eating carrots for your eyesight, not a thing. And now it turns out full of oxalates, as with mushrooms, as with potatoes, a lot of seeded fruit and vegetables, just really bad for your system. So I also came to realize within the last 6 months that almonds, whether they are the almond, the milk, or flour, are absolutely one of the worst things you can possibly ever have. Full stop. It doesn't matter if keto says it's okay, if the paleo diet says you can include nuts. Please, please don't. If you just watch that video with Pim and Sally, and I promise you that you will see, definitely don't eat these things, totally bad. And honestly, there's a reason why most of us, if we eat nuts, we will feel bloated. We get gassy. Maybe we have to run to the bathroom. There's a reason for it, because our bodies were not designed to consume these things. We might eat them and they taste nice, doesn't mean we should. Okay? And all I know for sure is, and I have not eaten nuts in quite some time, but that alone is going to keep me from ever wanting to try them again. Because, like, no, thank you. Right? So this was all because, especially because tomorrow is New Year's Eve day, and, it'll be my older son and I at home. We're going to order some food from takeaway. It'll probably be donors or kebabs. I just get the meat. He'll probably have a beer, and we might watch a movie and bring in the new year, and then that'll be it. Not a huge deal, but I know there are a lot of people over this holiday season in particular really have a tough time, especially if you have a carb addiction, and even more so if you're like me and you have a carb and sugar addiction. It's really hard at this time of year because practically everything that people put out, carbs and sugar or something processed. And you think to yourself, oh, we'll just have the one. Listen, I have this thing I was making, egg bake, okay? It's like 14 eggs, whole, hand mixed, like, blended with a bit of sweetener, a tiny bit of baking allspice. So it's got cardamom, cinnamon, and ginger, which I know can be high in oxalates, but I put a very small amount. And when I have that, I don't have anything else that is high in oxalates. So it kind of balances out a little bit. And then I would blend it till it gets a bit frothy and toss it into the oven at like 200 degrees Celsius. Usually 10 to 15 minutes is all it takes. And I would often eat one or two pieces from the pan as soon as it came out while it was piping hot. Or I would dip this in an egg wash and then fry it in the frying pan with butter. And then melt a bit of butter over the top. So it's kind of like French toast, but there's absolutely no bread involved. It's basically just eggs, a little bit of salt, a little bit of baking soda, bicarbonate of soda if you're here in the UK, tiny bit of spice, very little bit of sweetener, and that would be it. The problem was even just that little tiny sweet bit was enough for me to want to eat more. And I would eat more and more, and I would still be hungry. I could probably have eaten the entire pan, and then all of a sudden I've got enough sweetener in my body that I'm fully bloated, feeling constipated, feeling nauseous, massive headache from the sweetener, feeling absolutely horrible, and still hungry. And it's not like I ate it with loads of carbs. I didn't eat potatoes. I didn't have any chocolate or chocolate flavored anything on it. And for me, I have had to accept the fact that I cannot have anything that even tastes sweet, because all it does is it gets my brain going, ooh, well, that's good. One piece is good, so 6 must be even better, because I have an addiction to sugar, which is triggered even by just a slight sweet taste of something. So even if I'm having sugar-free juice, okay, like over here in England, we have this stuff called squash. And it's like, you can get it with sweetener, this is perfect for my husband as a type 2 diabetic. He can drink something, it refreshes him. He feels like his thirst is quenched. It has no sugar in it, and sweetener does not affect him. So for him, it's great. He's not drinking full sugar juice. He doesn't drink orange juice or anything like that. It's like a fruit punch. So you put in a 2-liter bottle, you might mix in half an inch worth of the squash mix, the fruit punch mix, and fill the rest with water so you dilute it. It's extra strength or what have you. Even just a single sip of that stuff is enough for me to crave more. And the crazy thing, and even Pim talked about this on her Q&A session from December 20th, which is, it doesn't matter if you know that something is going to be bad for you, that it's going to make you feel bloated, it's going to cause you inflammation, it's going to cause you to be swollen and puffy and sore, and all those things happen, by the way, with me. My arthritis flares up, my fibromyalgia pain is like intensified and amplified. I have a chronically inflamed sacroiliac joint, which is the joint that fits in your sacroiliac bone area. So it's basically the top of the back of your pelvis. From what I can remember, a doctor telling me, it's the piece of bone that is between the bottom of your lumbar spine and before your tailbone starts. It's that piece right in there. And your SI joint is the tissues, or the ligaments, the tissues that attach it together. And for me, it's chronically inflamed. And it started to be inflamed when I suffered a bulged disc in between the bottom 2 vertebrae of my lower back, of my lumbar area. And that was in 2014. But I didn't know anything about correct, proper human nutrition. I didn't understand the importance of eating animal meats and lowering my carbs to as little as possible, 0 if possible. I didn't know anything about oxalates, although to be fair, I really didn't know much. I definitely learned a lot more when I watched Pim talk with Sally K. Norton, but I also learned a little bit when I watched Sally Norton talking to Bella from the Steak and Butter Gang several months ago. Okay. And at first it was overwhelming. It's like, oh my goodness, everything has oxalates. Everything is full of oxalates. Everything may have a little bit of oxalate in it, but so it may not be possible to have absolutely none. But she did point out that what is found in meats is trace amounts. So really not even worth mentioning. And we actually produce some ourselves when we go through the process of digestion. So it's not like the body doesn't need a little bit of them. It's when we put in way too much of it that's the problem. But I also know that if I'm feeling hungry and I am making, say, the meal for the rest of the family, because I usually eat the same thing. I take a big fistful of ground beef, toss it in my beautiful new cast iron skillet, because our other one eventually died. It's a whole other thing. But it is amazing. It heats perfectly and everything gets heated properly through. Sorry, in case you're wondering, I have this blanket over the office chair because the chair itself is black and I find I sort of look like a floating head if it's just the chair. And what I realized is that the oxalates, I'm learning they affect everything. So the fact that I am starting into menopause, but the fact that my cycles are that much worse and are either that much heavier or longer than I would expect. Like I've had some that lasted like 13, 14 days. And I suspect the oxalate dumping is probably part of that. May not be. It might just be my body adjusting, my hormones adjusting. But it has played a part. And as far as, me constantly wondering, well, I look after my skin. I always protect it. When I'm out in the sun, I make sure to moisturize and all that kind of stuff. Why am I still getting breakouts? I have, over the last couple of months especially, I felt like I have almost zero stress in my life. My anxiety has been under control and managed through a combination of eating a proper diet for humans, animal-based, 98% zero carb, okay, less than coffee, which I generally drink black, and avoiding all the other stuff. So in spite of all that, because I remember seeing videos where people promised like, oh, go carnivore, your skin will be perfect, your hair will be gorgeous, and will not turn, the gray will go away, and all this kind of ridiculousness. And part of that is going to happen regardless, because that is a part of the chemistry in our bodies changing as we get older. And I think especially as a woman, as the estrogen levels change, as I progress through the stages of menopause, that will probably be the case, and I will probably see gray come in. But I've also noticed that my hair is a whole lot less frizzy, and it is a lot easier to deal with. Yes, I do use shampoo and conditioner, but even then, there was a point where none of that even mattered, because it was just coming out in clumps, regardless of the treatment I was putting on it. Because of what I was putting in my body as far as food-wise, the rest of that didn't matter. And I think that's the real truth, is there are certain things that we can try to do externally, but if we haven't got the core looked after, none of the rest of it will matter, right? If we are not eating as God intended, if we are not following the plan for human beings, and again, I think of it like this: God made everything. This is what I believe, okay? This is what I believe. This is from my own faith. And obviously, everyone is entitled to believe what they want, because that is the way this world works. Everyone is entitled to their own opinions and their own beliefs. Absolutely. But I do believe that God created this world. And I do believe that the Bible is God's word, and what is in there is for us to follow. Now, keeping in mind the context of when it was written, who it addressed, and what was yet to come. Okay, so some things that are in there are no longer valid or do not need to be applied because there's been a new order of things. So under the Old Testament, men had to be circumcised in order to be considered as faithful Jewish believers. Now, obviously, because of Jesus and his sacrifice, everybody can be saved. Not just the Jewish people, but Gentiles as well. And salvation is made available to men and women and anyone in between, however you identify. If you put God first, then you are one of his children. Now, having said that, Genesis chapter 1 talks about how God created the world, the heavens, the earth, all the plants, all the trees, all the fruit, and then all the animals. And then eventually he created humans, which seems to tell me that he did it in that order for a very specific reason. So the grasses had to grow, and the trees and shrubs had to grow, so that they could in fact be there and develop enough for the animals to eat. Like if he just put in grass sprouts, well, that is not going to be enough to feed the very massive herds of animals that would eat them, right? He then created all the animals, like all the birds, all the animals of the sea, all the things that slithered, that walked, and I accept that he also created the dinosaurs at one point. So you've got the carnivores, you've got the type A predators, You've got those who ate meat and grasses, are omnivores, and then you had the herbivores. And over time, those didn't survive the different ice ages, nor did a lot of them survive the first humans who hunted them to extinction. But the plan was clear. The grasses and the plants were grown to feed the animals were created to feed the humans. And we may have had to learn different skills to eat the different animals. You know, we couldn't just chase after the big mammoths and, you know, those types of massive creatures with sticks. When those were all gone, we had to develop tools, we had to develop weapons, we had to develop ways of hunting these smaller, quicker, more intelligent animals in order to catch them and kill them. And we also had to develop the tools on how to cut them up, and, you know, fire was discovered, and we had learned how to cook meats, etc., etc. So that helped us evolve, and that all was part of God's plan. And, you know, reading again back through Genesis in chapter 9, where Noah is being addressed and reminded that that humans were given power and control over everything on the earth underneath it. Meaning, we were in charge, we had more power. God was, wanting to walk with us more than the grasses, right? So we were over control of all the plants and the animals that existed. And that it's described it to Noah that the plants were there to feed the animals, and the animals were there to feed us. Now, in some cases, as humans, we got selfish. Those of us who had the money, who could afford the animals, whether they were raising cattle or sheep, they had meat to consume. Those who did not, oftentimes they were left eating. So, because all this happened around the agricultural revolution. And what that meant was the people who had less money were forced to eat the grains. And the people who had more wealth could afford to either raise the animals and eat them themselves, or they could go to market and buy the animals to feed the family. But those who had the money could afford the meat, and those who didn't have the money were stuck eating the grains. And that, I think, is something that carries on today. Obviously, meat is more expensive than fruit and vegetable, than grains. And so it's really easy, whether you are in the Western world, whether you live in the Far East, and maybe rice is a staple in your diet, or whether it is the product of wheat, of flour, like baked goods, well, those are cheap to make and therefore cheap to buy. So it is a lot more challenging for those who have less money to try to eat an animal-based diet. It's not impossible, but it is more expensive. And therefore it can become very daunting. You maybe don't want to eat eggs and chicken legs or chicken wings or thighs all the time. I personally don't like eating anything chicken because I find it very dry and not very filling. That's me. But some people might not have a choice. And so what I've come to realize is that I am so lucky that I can go out, we can go to the butcher's every month, and we load up our fridge and freezer with sausages and bacon and all kinds of beef, whether it is, briskets or pork loins or leg of lamb or lamb roast or top sirloin, whatever it is. Whatever we get, we can either roast in the oven or chuck in the slow cooker all day. How fortunate. So very lucky. And I guess really what that brings me to next is thinking about the year to come. Now, I know I've made so many resolutions in the past that I knew I was never going to keep, okay? Like, I'm going to go to the gym every single day. Well, I can't because of my back injury, because of my fibromyalgia, I can't go to the gym. And to be quite honest, I wouldn't go anyways. And in actual fact, if you're doing strength training, fantastic. But if you're doing full out cardio, like you're doing Zumba and aerobics and running all the time, that actually isn't good for you, because it's going to keep your heart rate up. It's going to put your adrenals into overdrive. Your cortisol levels are going to be ridiculously through the roof, and you're going to hang on to whatever body fat is there. Okay, if you're doing that at that level. Hey, if you like to ride your bike, even if you like to do distance riding, okay, do it because you like it, fine. If you want to get out and walk, or, go swimming in the nicer weather, or unless you have access to a pool, go for it. Low impact, low intensity aerobics are probably fine if you enjoy them. But if you don't, or if you can't exercise, you'll be okay. You can still find massive success just by changing what you eat. And I basically found for me that I had to go from keto and pretty quickly into carnivore, because I realized the vegetables, even the relatively non-starchy ones, I could not handle. So for me, I had to eliminate them. Doesn't necessarily mean that you should do it as like cold turkey. And in fact, if you watch any of Bart or Pim's videos, the advice would be to do it slowly over time, because that kind of a shock to your system could mean you are dumping an amazingly high overload of oxalates into your body. And so that could cause you all sorts of like skin issues or bladder infections or rashes or whatever, right? There will be some effects. Now, if you're willing to put up with that just to get the stuff out of your system, that is your call. But I would suggest that you may want to phase out slowly. I did a cold turkey simply because I had to. Okay, I have such a super sensitive gut. I had to, but that doesn't mean necessarily that's what you guys should do. And thinking about this as well from a faith perspective, I think, to be honest, when we find faith, that it is good to jump all in with God, but that if we need time to find the right community, find the right support in our faith, that's a good thing, especially if you've had bad experiences in the past. That has nothing to do with your faith with God. Okay, your relationship with God is between you and God. And so you don't have to jump into the first faith community or church group you find. Take your time, make sure that it's the good fit for you. Okay? In the same way, when you're doing carnivore, unless you have to eliminate, and Michaela Peterson and Jordan Peterson are excellent examples of having to fully eliminate oxalates and other crap from their diet. And it was successful for them. Now, they may be dealing with oxalate dumping. I don't know. But again, if that is you, that's good. But if you want to transition over a little at a time, that's also okay. And what I have come to realize with my diet, even if I am doing it in a way that is a slow, tailored approach, I'm still following the diet that God has designed for us to follow as human beings. And just because I am not restricting myself to water steak and salt does not mean I am doing anything wrong. And in fact, the breakouts and the fact that I might have a little bit of hair come out in my hairbrush, I'm not pulling out chunks, right? I don't have bright red rosacea all across my face and forehead anymore, which I definitely did. Most days I feel I don't need any makeup. And I'm finding that my PMS symptoms, while they're still there, are far more manageable than they used to be. So my takeaway is, with everybody talking about New Year's resolutions, the only thing I resolve to do is to continue to follow the things that have worked for me and to be very mindful of anything I try to put into my diet, figuring out if it's a high oxalate item or not. Now, a lot of these things I wouldn't eat anyways because they're bad for IBS. Kind of interesting how those things all tie together, that having oxalate poisoning and having IBS or leaky gut kind of all happen together. Not really a surprise. And here I was for years thinking, oh, it just means I just can't tolerate green apples. But, I find gala apples were okay. Other than the fact that because of all the high fructose levels, my triglycerides were up so high that my specialist put me on Lipitor, which is a statin. So I may come off that at some point. I'll see what they say. But for now, everything seems to finally be working in a symbiotic relationship, right? Between what I'm eating now, my medications, my reduction in pain. Now, I just wanted to finish by saying that as far as addictions go, I don't believe that there is a cure for addiction because that part of the brain will always be there. But I do believe you can have recovery. I do believe that every day you can take time, and for me, that involves praying and talking to God. That involves, just meditating. And yes, I have to avoid certain things completely. Clearly, anything that tastes sweet, whether it is sugar in it or not, because that just triggers my desire for more. And I find it isn't just enough to say, I'm not going to do this, because those of us with addictions know willpower is not enough. White knuckling it is not enough. If you go to rooms like NA or AA, they talk about finding a power, a higher power, whatever that is for you. For me, it's God. For other people, it might be, Mother Nature or whatever they believe, whatever helps them realize there's something greater than themselves in the world. Because the reality is, we are powerless within ourselves to stop, which is the whole reason why it's an addiction, because we can't stop it. If we could stop it, we would not be addicted. And it's not a blame thing. That's just how it is. That's just the way it goes. So, having said that, what helps me is making sure that I'm salting food, because the brain can confuse the craving for sugar with a salt craving. So if I'm having something with salt, I don't crave the sugar anymore. That helps. Having a little sliver of butter when I'm feeling hungry, but not hungry enough to cook anything. I'm feeling like snacking. I'll have a little sliver of butter. Why? Because it's a little boost of fat and it's salted, so that helps. I make sure to cook and eat 20% fat ground beef. Why? Because it's fatty and therefore it's so delicious, and it's the fat that makes me feel satiated. So I can have 2 meals a day, breakfast in the morning, and then I have a meal again between 5 and 6 in the evening. It's got me on a set rhythm, a set circadian cycle. It's all good. But for the new year, my resolution is to continue simply doing what works, to find any ideas, any suggestions, any tweaks that might be helpful, and essentially tune out the noise in the background of the space of the people who are promoting all the special snacks and the supplements and this and that. It's not necessary at all. So that is what I'm looking to do. I am going to try, not that I eat a lot of cheese generally. I've had a little bit more than I would normally over the holidays, so I'm going to take that out of the diet for now, see if that makes any difference. Because I have a lactose intolerance, but it's mild, and I seem to be all right with a bit of butter. So we'll see what happens. But that's it. I feel like if we're approaching not just our lives as Christians, but if we are approaching food from the point of view of, let's not just wait till January. Why don't we just try to every day get up and eat the right things? And when I do that, it doesn't give me enough time to think about, all the goodies and snacks and treats that are out there, whether they're keto friendly or not, right? That's just me. And therefore I don't have to say, well, this is my last cheat meal. I don't have to do that anymore, because honestly, I've been able to find a way where I'm just like, I just want to eat the meats and toss in some egg yolks, and that's all I want, and that's good enough for me. So I don't know if that helps you guys or not, but if you want more information on actual proper nutrition, the science behind it, and exercise physiology, definitely check out and subscribe to both Professor Bart K as well as Pim Jansson. And yeah, you guys will not regret it. So that is it for me, guys. I know it's another long one. I would say sorry, but I'm not sorry. I'm so glad to be able to share this with you guys. This is just where I'm at, what I'm thinking as we get ready for the new year. Hooray, new beginnings. And listen, if you've been off the wagon, if you've messed up somehow, you can always start over. You can, even if you've eaten crap earlier today, if you're hungry, you still deserve to eat proper food. So even if you had pizza this morning for breakfast, and I used to do that, doesn't matter, forget about it. Eat something, eat some bacon and eggs for dinner. Get right back on the right path. It is never too late to eat the right things. And the same goes with our faith, right? Even if we've messed up, you know what? It is never too late to make the right decisions and, start doing what we should as Christians. It's never too late. Either in faith and our walk with God, or food and how we nourish our bodies. So that's kind of my end of the year thing. I hope that was helpful. I hope you guys got something out of the video. I will be back after New Year's Eve. I might even make a video tomorrow. I don't know. We'll see how the Spirit moves me, right? All the best, you guys. Thank you, everybody, for all of your support. All the best for the new year. Again, you don't have to wait for January the 1st to start eating in a way that is going to nourish your bodies. So that's it for now. I look forward to the next video. Thank you guys for all your support, for all your comments, all your love, all your feedback. And again, if you haven't yet, check out the channels for Professor Bart K and his lovely partner, Pim Jansson, who has her own channel as well. Definitely worth watching. Binge-worthy for sure. Thank you guys for everything. All the best in the new year. See you soon. Bye.